Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, mothers, fathers, daughters, sons, brothers, and sisters. Viva la España! As welcome along to round number 8 for the AFVRC, the Armed Forces Virtual Racing Challenge. Wow, what a change of circuit we have got for you this time. So, from one of the shortest circuits in the bonny Highlands of Scotland of Knockhill, what a pair of races we had. It was as chaotic as we thought it would be last time out, to certainly a circuit I'm much less familiar with, but looking forward to it nonetheless. Over in Spain, it is Navarra. And looking at the times in practice, we could well be seeing a bit of a change of the guard going on at the top. We'll have to wait, join us to see how that plays out. My name is Chris Buxton. I'll be one of your commentators throughout tonight's festivities. And joining me at my side, I'm always happy to say, keeping me on the straight and narrow, it's John Monroe.
How's it going, Chris?
Very much looking forward to this. Yep, I say it every week, and I don't apologize for saying it. So, yeah, very different feel for this circuit. I am much less familiar with Navarra. I've never actually raced it in sim racing terms. Not so familiar with it in its real life form either. Talk us through it, John.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm not going to keep you on the straight and narrow tonight, Chris, because I'm in exactly the same boat. I have never raced or commentated on a race here at Navarra, and that is exciting to me because you don't often, I've done a lot of sim racing over the years, and you don't often come across a track that's unfamiliar, but this is one of them. But I'm really enjoying what I'm seeing so far in practice. We've seen a lot of drivers finding the limits around here, and the layout itself is, very complex. I think the map maybe makes it look a little bit stop-start and a bit simple, but actually there's a lot of flowing corners. There's corners that kind of go straight into another. There's kind of curved braking zones and all sorts of stuff going on around here. I described it earlier to you as it almost feels like a flat Portimao in many ways. But I think at 3.89 kilometers as well, it's going to be a test for these drivers to learn, because I'm sure plenty of these drivers won't have raced around here before either.
Yeah, absolutely so. So we've gone from a circuit that doesn't necessarily feature as heavily as the likes of Spa and Snetterton, etc. last time out at Knockhill. But it's certainly a bit more of a racing fixture than potentially Navarra is. But that said, that is only going to open up even more uncertainty, particularly when we come to a reverse grid race. Again, it's a double race head out for tonight. This is how the calendar is looking. We are in the closing stages now of the season, so drop scores definitely going to be playing their part. And certainly for former championship leader Ryan Martin, it is taking its toll. Pete Plasto has climbed to the top of the tree in the Aston Martin. This is without drop scores, we should add. So, in fairness, Pete Plasto is still at the top of the tree with drop scores, but we will show that when we can. But Adam Barron is hot on his heels. Chris Pawley in third, and Ryan Martin, there he is. This is before drop scores are taken into consideration. So even on raw point alone, this shows how what looked like was going to be a stranglehold on the season that Ryan Martin was showing has just not quite come to fruition in the closing stages of the season. Tom Stevens in 5th, Dan Cross 6th, Darren Bear 7th, David Wrench in 8th, Bradley Crop 9, and Matt Forrest rounding out the top 10 in unmitigated scores. Team Championship, well, again, as we know, Royal Air Force are going to fly off into the distance with this, but look how close it is between our Army and our veterans. So very close, just a couple of 100 points. 250 points or so between the two teams with the Royal Navy. Again, that's mainly because there are only a small handful of drivers representing our Royal Navy. But that said, we thank each and every one of our drivers for their service in all of our armed forces. Qualifying has just begun, so there are no times yet to talk about. But from what we saw in practice, John, yeah, like you say, there is a wonderful flow to this circuit. I would love to get out there and have a go on this circuit.
Yeah, so would I. I think I might have to do that. I think I might have done an outlap a long time ago, but I definitely don't remember. I probably crashed too many times on cold tires and gave up very, very quickly. But yeah, it looks really, really interesting, actually. I think for racing, it's going to be intriguing to see where the spots are. There's a couple of key overtaking spots, I would say, or what look like overtaking spots. Turn 9, there's a very fast run on the way into a tight right-hand hairpin. Lots of room on the inside, space for drivers to kind of send one down the inside. It's a bit trickier towards the first few corners because you've got a couple of flat-out kinks before the first tight corner, which is turn 3. Turn 5's a fast third gear left-hander as well. Don't think that's much of an overtaking spot. Neither is turn 6. So maybe only a couple for the drivers to choose from. But I think if you can line one up around here and get the car in front of you defending, maybe there's a chance to kind of force a move in the long run by running side by side for a couple of corners. But we'll join Chris Pauly now for a lap of this Navarra circuit, and he is the man who's been setting the pace in practice after a fantastic weekend at Knock Hill.
Yeah, absolutely. So really coming good in the closing stages of the season. So flat out first turn and then just clouts the curb to slow it down for turn 2. The car getting very, very uncomfortable trying to turn and brake at the same time for the very slow right-hander of 3. Sweep through 4, catch as much of the apex as you can, but you have got a fair amount of runoff area on the outside line. And then into this long sweeping left-hander. The front tyres getting a bit grumpy. It's coming through turn 5 and down through the gears for turn 6. Again, a fair amount of apex space to use. Flat out turn 7, as long as you hug that inside line, then into turn 8. This kind of reminds me of a section in Anglesey called Rocket Hill. And then you got this tight right-hander, then this flat out section leading to a very sharp braking zone of turn 9. So this is where you were describing, John, of where we're going to see a potential decent amount of overtake attempts going on.
Yeah, I'm not sure where else we're going to see them, to be honest.
Well, I mean, again, if you make a mistake here, and yeah, there is a fair amount of runoff areas, but there is also a fair amount of grass. That we know, grass is not particularly conducive to grip.
That it is not. And Pauly doing a great job, though, to stay off at the moment. There's a stone bouncing over the windscreen there as he heads around what is turn 13. Now, the flat-out run through turn 14. I don't believe the driver's going to be lifting through here. You can see he's actually using the corner to hug himself to the inside, set himself up for turn 15, the last corner, tight right-hander. Maybe an overtaking spot there, Chris. If you can get a good run out of 13, get the slipstream through 14, and then dive to the inside, we could see moves there. Down the pit straight now for Chris Pauly to cross the line to finish his first lap of the session and get qualifying underway. And it's a 146.289 for the Mercedes driver, who's put himself right back in the thick of the championship battle. He is usurped, though, immediately by Scotsman Ryan Martin with 146.134. Boland and Ajewski slot into 3rd and 4th, but the times will, of course, tumble as this session continues. And at the moment, it's not how it was in practice. It's Martin from Pauly, but we're only one lap in.
Indeed. Chris Pauly was the only man to get under 145 in the practice session that preceded the qualifying that we are now enjoying. Darren Berris was actually not with us in the practice session. We don't know where his pace lies. We've had a few drivers join us as the practice session was coming to an end. We were a bit worried that we were going to have a handful of cars, and then we had a bit of an influx of drivers join us. So there are some drivers, and Darren Berris is one of them, where we genuinely do not know where they're going to sit. Also, I noticed there's a name we haven't seen for quite a while. Timothy Hastings has joined us again. I think, I don't remember rightly, we saw Timothy for the opening round at do we see Timothy at Spa? Yes, we did. So is it Spa? Yeah, Spa. It is just Spa. Yes, I beg your pardon. I thought we might have seen Timothy at the season opener in Thruxton, but no, it was only Spa. Yes, thank you, production, for that. This is probably one of the few occasions where our production expert Tom has done more laps around this place than we have.
Yeah, quite possible. I mean, Tom knows his tracks. He's been helping me a lot with corner numbers and names throughout the season. Tracks I thought I knew, and apparently I didn't. But it's nice to see two BMWs out on circuit, though. To see Boland and Hastings. And obviously that's the second time this year that we've seen two BMWs. Last time it happened, Boland had good pace at Spa, so you never know. Pauly, though, jumps to the top, and Ryan Martin 1,000th of a second behind, a 145.783, so actually just over 1,000, closer to 2,000s, just to extend that gap out a little bit. They've got a big advantage, though, over Cross, Boland and Plasto at the moment. Plasto, of course, our championship leader, but did not have the best round at Knockhill. It's just that everyone else in championship contention, other than Chris Pauly, had an even worse round, it has to be said. But he is now sitting third. You've got Matthew Forrest crossing the line, and he is going to slot into, no, he's starting a lap, in fact. So, no, he's not. He's slotting into 4th place. 0.8 of a second off pole position, so that's a good lap from Matthew in the colourful Aston Martin, representing the veterans. And that's another thing, we'll have to keep an eye on that that team's battle, I should say, for second in the team standings, because it's looking pretty close. And obviously, with not too many rounds to go, we could see some swings in momentum.
Yeah, absolutely. So there is Chris Pauly, the number 88 Mercedes, who has had the command of the top of the timing draw. It's quite a lot of apex here being used there by the Mercedes. Just coming down through Swissy's section again, because I'm not so familiar with this. I'm going to have to try and figure out where we are. Well, we're near the end of the lap, so that's turn 15, I think. No, not quite. No,
13. That's
13. Excuse me. So that's where the pit lane entrance is, which most people won't be using unless they've had a very, very bad day. Is it quite an odd place for the pit lane entry? It kind of cuts out the last two, so a bit like Silverstone. It cuts out the last couple of corners to the lap. So probably drivers fairly thankful they won't need it on a regular basis. Was that an improvement? It was not an improvement. Still a pretty solid lap time, 1:45.9. Still remains. Oh, change at the top, Ryan Martin. Scotsman reclaiming the top of the tree. Chris Boland storms into third in the BMW. As you say, John, the time's getting very, very close. As we had in Spa, big lap, still tiny gaps.
Absolutely. But there are tiny gaps, but then between the chunks of drivers or the groups of drivers, we've got bigger gaps, which is something we've seen so far this season. But I mean, as long as there are plenty of people to keep things competitive, and we've had such a competitive championship this season, it looks like, though, Paulie and Martin are the class of the field, not for the first time this year. I would expect Plasto and Boland to get a little bit closer. We've still got, of course, 11 minutes of this qualifying session and change to go, so it should be okay. You know what I would do, Chris? I would drive through the pit lane, forget my pit lane speed limiter, and smash in a pole position lap. That's how I would get pole around here. No, but in all seriousness, I think it's one of those few pit lanes where it actually cuts off quite a lot of the track. So really, if you are needing to make a pit stop, which obviously in these races, these short 50-minute races, you are toast. But in a normal situation, where you're having pit stops, you're not actually losing as much time in the pit lane as you otherwise would at a kind of regular circuit. And I know Tom did say that the pit lane entry here is a bit sketchy, so it would have been exciting to see an endurance race here, but maybe next year.
Maybe next year, indeed. Yeah, I must say I'm really, really enjoying so far seeing our drivers take to the twists and turns and undulations, definitely needing a rhythm. This is certainly a track that needs, once you've just got that rhythm, once you've got the flow of the circuit, again, that was where your brilliant comparison with Portimao in particular really comes good. As Chris Paulie gets back to the top of the timing tree by 100ths of a second, chased home by his pursuer, Ryan Martin. No improvement on that occasion. Yeah, so once you've got that flow, it's a circuit that will really, really reward you. I would bet there's a number of drivers out there just loving the way this track feels. Improvement there for John Finch in the bright green Aston Martin, up into 7th position with 1:46.605 under his right foot. We have had a new driver join us in the form of Glyn Burry in the number 87 Mercedes, although not on circuit at the moment. Saw the name appear in practice, didn't see a time though, so welcome aboard to Glyn Burry. Hopefully we'll get some laps on the board as the tail of John Finch gets a little bit uncomfortable. Dan Cross in third now in the 263 Mercedes, as Pete Plasto jumps up into fourth in the 312 Aston Martin. And Adrian Warmington seems to be making a habit of this, joining during the qualifying session. So again, he's done it again. The number 18 Mercedes joining very late in the session. Well, some people perform under pressure, but goodness me, that's one way to do it, I suppose.
Certainly is. Adam Barron in a similar boat, joining right at the end of practice. I think his car had a mechanical fault on the way in, so he was very lucky to make it by just a couple of minutes. Or, if you look at it another way, unlucky to have the problem in the first place. I think we'll go with that. But he's going to have to get up to speed very, very quickly. Currently 1.1 off of pole position is Adam Barron. And we know he can do more than that, but we also know how quick Paulie and Martin have been. And it definitely looks like it's a Mercedes domination out there at Navarra. We've got 3 Mercs in the top 3 positions. So it's looking good for the German mark at the moment. Aston Martin of Plasto 4th, then it's BMW, Aston, Porsche, Aston, and BMW rounding out the top 10. As we see Jakubowski now with Trunwitt just behind him. These guys are 11th and 12th in the order in qualifying. They're the opposite order on circuit right now. So we'll see if either of these guys can make an improvement, but they've been pretty close to each other all season. Jakubowski, though, did have a bit of a nightmare last time at Knockhill with lots of off-track excursions out of the chicane, which, to be fair, he definitely wasn't the only one, but he'll be looking for a little bit of a cleaner run, I would think, tonight.
Yeah, very much so. A man that really benefited from Knockhill last time was Darren Berris, who is down the order at the moment. Jumped up several positions points-wise for the RAF representative in the number 40 Aston Martin. Jumped up to 7th position from 11th from the previous round. Darren Bears definitely enjoyed Turkeston last time out. Scott Eastwood, one of our few McLarens in the field. Scott finds himself, I think he's not got a time on the board as yet, the number 42. He doesn't. He's just coming through the final turn now. Does this time get him on the board? I thought we might see a bit more stronger performance from the Porsches, but again, the Mercedes showing they are very much the class of the field once more. A bit of a wiggle there from Scott Eastwood as he's coming down towards turn 1, so that would be a outlet for him. You just see how uncomfortable these cars get when they're braking and turning at the same time. So the GT4s aren't so bad with it. GT3s tend to get very, very unhappy when you try and brake and turn at the same time. What about the racing machinery you've had experience with in the past, John? You're sort of judging how you're turning quite hard through turn 2 and braking at the same time. How does that feel from a driver's perspective?
It's a bit of a strange one, really, because your body is going through different forces to what you would normally be experiencing going through a corner. Normally, you're fully leaning over one way and being pushed back into the seat under acceleration. Obviously, when you're braking through a corner, you're kind of being thrown forward into the side, but you're also having to feel the balance of the car. So it's amazing how much that actually adjusts the physical feeling of the handling of the car, even though obviously it's just your perception of it through the steering wheel. Something that sim racing can never quite do, of course, is that kind of seat of the pants feel that you get from a real car and the G-forces that it simulates as well, and how that actually transforms the physical feeling of driving around the circuit and how you might drive the car. So sim racing's hugely advanced with technology, with the force feedback and everything like that, but that's one area where it can't quite simulate it. On the sim, however, you've just got to really know and practice your braking zones. You've got to be able to feel through the force feedback when the back of the car starts stepping out under braking. And you do also get understeer. If you're going too fast and the car's set up a certain way, you could also understeer as well as oversteer. So it is a tricky thing to master. And I think, it's a huge lap time killer as well. If you learn how to trail brake well, if you learn how to get that car in and keep it slowing down as you're obviously turning through the corner, you have to be easing off the brake at just the right rate. A lot of practice goes into trail braking, but if you get it right, you can gain a huge amount of time and really change the balance of the car as you then turn into the final part of the corner. So it's a hugely dynamic area of driving, and it makes a massive difference to your outright performance. So we'll see the best drivers really make up a lot of time in those trail braking areas as the McLaren of James King bounces over the curbs. But you can see the McLaren's not the biggest fan of the curbs. We've said that for a long time now, but James King's McLaren really not liking these Navarra curves, not as much as the Mercedes of Paulie and Martin anyway.
No, very true. And that, as you say, John, is an observation we've made. The Mercedes just able to glide its way over the curbs more comfortably than some of the other marks. The McLaren we are watching, number 23, James King, was a BMW well within the top 5 on a regular basis last season. Just decided to give the McLaren a go. Speaking of BMWs in the top 5, Chris Boland in the number 1. Doesn't look like he's going to be retaining the number 1 on the car for this season, but that said, you can never speak too soon, although Chris Boland down in 14th in the championship at the moment. It's going to take a little bit too much to try and push him towards challenging those top spots. But that said, stranger things have happened. It's good to see that Chris is also kind of showing a bit more pace towards the closing part of the season. See what he can do, as we are less than 5 minutes now from the end of qualifying.
Yeah, Chris certainly deserved his championship last season. He's taken a bit more of a relaxed approach to this season. I don't mean that in the sense that he's taken his foot off the gas, because he's literally flat out pushing every single time to get the best result. What I mean by that is he's not competing in a full campaign. He's not able to make every round, so he's just going out there. He's picked a bit of a rogue car as well in the BMW. None of the other top contenders picked that new BMW, so it's clearly not the fastest car across the season, or else we would generally see the championship contenders kind of err towards it a bit more. So Boland's in an unfavoured car. He's not doing all the rounds this season. He's just coming out and having a bit of fun. It's probably why we haven't seen him quite as near the top of the timesheets as we got used to last season. But that being said, he still picked up a win, of course, earlier at Spa, and he's still been competitive, so it's been great to see him out again. But yeah, I really don't think the title is going to be heading his way this season. Will it be heading the way of one of his competitors from last season, Pete Plasto? Because Pete came on very strong at the end of last season, and I think he's carried that form into this season. The problem he's got is the competition has increased with Martin and Paulie up there, so he's definitely keeping himself in the mix here, Chris, for a championship with his consistency.
Yeah, absolutely. So Adam Barron jumps into the top 3 now with a 1:46.159, sees him just half a second off that top time set by Chris Paulie, and yet to be beaten by the number 88 Mercedes. It is still a Merc front row at the moment. We'll see if anybody can upset the balance at the top of the tree, but it's Chris Paulie from Ryan Martin from Adam Barron, your top 3 at the moment. So, speaking of Ryan Martin, there he is in the shot. There's Adrian Warmington, who joined the session somewhat late in the number 18 Merc. Still plodding on. Yet to get a time on the board, but maybe a bit less experienced than some of our other drivers, but we still welcome them to the fray here at the AFVRC. See what he is able to do. As the qualifying session is ticking away now. I'm just looking at that gap of 100th of a second between Chris Paulie and Ryan Martin. Absolutely unreal how close those two remain. Warmington comes out of the final turn. No time on the board just yet to see if he gets a time in the number 18 car. Darren Berris registers a 1:48.671. Adrian Warmington gets a 1:50.797. Still a couple of minutes on the board for improvements. Does Ryan Martin get an improvement on the board? So he crosses the line. That is not an improvement for him. Adam Barron and Pete Plasto at the back of the shot. Pete Plasto does improve back up into 4th. Again, another 100th of a second. Not even that. Separating himself and his old arch rival, Adam Barron.
Yeah, Barron's really, found a new gear here, and that probably doesn't come as much of a surprise given that Adam was so late joining the practice. This has basically been his warm-up session that he's had to get up to speed through at qualifying, coming in cold. So good to see he's now within half a second, and it's a bit closer, Chris, to what you might have expected with the Porsches towards the front. I think he'll be reasonably happy. I don't think at that pace, though, there's anything those guys are going to do about the Mercedes out in front. Paulie and Martin, nothing to separate them once again. But I have to acknowledge the fact that this is now the second week in a row where Ryan Martin hasn't been the outright fastest driver in the server. Paulie has just edged ahead of him. It was the same at Knockhill. He put in a lot of practice for that. Obviously took an astonishing double victory. And now coming into Navarra, I think Paulie is really gunning for this championship. He looks like he's prepared based on the lap times. He's really taken the fight to Ryan Martin. And I think these two are going to be inseparable as we continue through this season.
I quite agree. The top 4 in this session are the top 4 in the championship, not quite in the order that they are displayed. Pete Plasto currently with the championship lead, although very, very narrow on adjusted and non-adjusted scores from Adam Barron. So those two, again, just through consistency, proving absolute king in this championship. You could argue consistency is always king, but you don't necessarily have to be the absolute fastest, although it does generally help. So then, less than no time at all now. The checkered flag is out. So did Adam Barron cross the line? Did Pete Plasto's time get counted before the flag fell? It may have done. There's no checkered flag appearing next to their name, so they may be able to finish this particular time, although Pete Plasto may have bowed out of that. We see him in the background of the shot. Adam Barron hasn't. He is absolutely pressing on. Timothy Hastings. Yeah. Oh, I remember that flame livery now on the side of the BMW. Coming over the line in 11th place. And Timothy, a very late joiner to the season. No improvement there, but yeah, a solid midfield start nonetheless.
It's amazing what car body language can tell you, because Adam Barron, I mean, before he even turned into the first few corners, you could somehow tell he was on a charge. He had one more lap to go because the Porsche engine was singing. The car was looking absolutely on the limit. So we will see one more lap then from Adam Barron. Lots of drivers now heading into the pits, so it's going to be over for most of them. Dan Cross, Eastwood, maybe still having a chance to improve. Let's see what, of course, our veteran Adam Barron can do, and see if the veterans can claw their way back up to second in the team standings, because it is a pretty close run thing at the moment. Barron currently half a second off. To be honest, he's not going to improve his position unless he finds half a second, but he will at least get another practice lap in, make a bit of a statement. As you can see, the Porsche riding the curb somewhat better than the McLaren, I would say, Chris, heading into the final corner for the final time. In fact, it's not the final corner. That's both of us been done by that now. It is, of course, turn 13, and there is Adam heading into the pit lane, and that will, therefore, round off qualifying.
Yes, so it is Chris Pauly and Ryan Martin on the front row again. In the same order they were last time out following the qualifying session, but right behind them is Adam Barron and Pete Plasto on row 2. Row 3 sees Dan Cross and Chris Borland. Row 4 is Matthew Forrest and John Finch. Row 5 is Bradley Kropp and Jack Trenwitt. Row 6, Timothy Hastings and James King. Row 7 is Scott Eastwood and Jack Kajewski. Row 8, Ben Weston and Darren Berris. Row 9 is Adrian Warmington and Sean Watson. Glyn Berry, we did not see come out and set a lap, so if Glyn is with us, he will start from the tail of the field. Big notable absence on the form of Tom Stevens, the 189 Porsche, not with us this week. I think he was saying Tom's feeling a bit under the weather today, so get well soon, Tom. But that's really going to open up the championship. He climbed from 8th to 5th last time, following Knock Hill. Oh, that's going to hurt.
Yeah, certainly. Sorry, I was just looking into Tom Stevens because I think I told you he was under the weather, and I've checked that and I was wrong. So apologies, Tom.
All right.
He's not under the weather. I don't believe, but either way, we hope to see him again. Hope to see him again next time out.
Yes, indeed. So the grid now being formed as mentioned. You can see the cars popping into life as they are confirming their settings and their strategy. Well, there's no strategy to confirm. It is a non-pit stop race. There is the grid. So just to run through it again, it is Pauly from Martin on the front row, Barron and Plasto right behind them, Cross and Boland on row 3, Forrest and Finch row 4, Kropp and Trenwitt row 5, Hastings and King will have row 6, Eastwood and Ijewski on row 7, Weston and Berris on row 8, Warmington and Watson row 9. As mentioned with Glenberry, hopefully being able to join us to make it the 19-car grid for tonight. Ooh, now Pauly and Martin certainly seem to have the pace advantage. You cannot separate them on raw pace alone. Ooh, this... Who are you going to put your money on, John? Get off the fence.
Oh, it's tricky to predict. I am happy to take my place on the ground with this one. I'm going to say that Chris Pauly is going to win this race. I think he's going to make it 3 in a row. We saw it last season with Pete Plasto, so it'd be a great feat to repeat from Chris Pauly, especially given how fast we know Ryan Martin is. And off of the front row, obviously, it's going to be very tightly contested. Martin is probably the one who needs the result more, I would say. But Pauly's the one with the momentum. I think Pauly's he's in a good place right now. I think he's full of confidence, and I think he really, really wants this. So if I was a betting man, I would be putting my money on Pauly for this race. But of course, there's a long time for this one to play out, and none of us really know what this is going to look like in terms of a race at Navarra. So I think that's going to be a very exciting factor, at least on a personal level for me, is just to see what racing is actually like around this circuit and try and get a feel for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we just have no idea how this race is going to turn out. Even on familiar circuits, we don't entirely know how the race is going to go. Yeah, again, I know exactly where you're going with that. The sensible money would be on one of our front row contenders. I'm going to go Adam Barron. I've got an inclination that there's something that Adam is. Certainly, like you say, the way he was really pushing in those last couple of laps. Yes, still half a second off the ultimate pace, but we'll see. My bets usually end up detonated in the course of the race. So, Adam, if that is the case, I'm truly sorry.
It sounds like you're going for Adam based on a feeling of pace rather than the feeling of an obliteration for the two Mercedes in front of him, which is an interesting one because I thought you were going to say you thought the front two might come together, but we know how good Adam is, right? We know how many races he won last season. He's right up there. I just don't know if that half a second gap in pace is going to be too much.
Yeah, a perfectly fair analysis, and may yet prove to be so. No, I was not predicting that Wales versus Scotland was going to go in that direction, but we will see. We just genuinely don't know. But I'm going to go Adam Barron for no justifiable reason other than hunch. As we see the
hunch
field.
Is good.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is coming through turn 9. So this being an older circuit in iRacing, they are doing a full lap behind the safety car rather than a part lap we see in some other circuits. Now for those that are unfamiliar with this circuit, so that some of the drivers will have less track time behind here, this is going to be quite a nervous time for them.
Yeah, it certainly is. I think, first race start at any new circuit, it's trying to learn where the cars are on the opening lap, where you find space. Naturally, do you run 2-3 wide into places, and where does it tighten up? So hopefully the drivers have done a little bit of practice, maybe even a practice race around here. But for a lot of them, I'm sure this will be the first experience as the safety car pulls into the pit lane and we are about to go racing. It's round 8 out of 10 for the championship, Chris. Things are getting very, very serious in terms of the championship battle now, and every single race counts. So this is going to be a high-pressure, high-intensity battle, and I cannot wait.
Oh, you and me both, John. You and me both. Yeah, every Glenberry is on track, so that is good to hear. And wasting no time at all, Chris Pauly drops the throttle. We are racing here at Navarra. So Ryan Martin gets straight into the slipstream, already challenging for the lead. We see Barron and Plasto side by side. The Aston just nosing ahead of the Porsche, but does not have that inside line. Chris Pauly defends from the Scotsman coming into the first few turns. Still side by side with Adam Barron and Pete Plasto. It looks like the Porsche has regained that third spot. Right behind them is Cross and Boland. Everyone in very, very short order. Fair amount of swapping going on, but it doesn't look like we've had any major detonations just yet. So far, so good.
Yeah, a bit of oversteer there for Timothy Hastings coming through the flat-out left-hander, turn 3, or turn 4, I should say. Now this is the fast turn 5 sweeper, then heavy braking into the left-hander at turn 6. This is where I think the traction zone is going to be tricky for the drivers to keep it on the straight and narrow, but so far, keeping it clean and, straight and narrow. Everyone's pointing the right direction, which is good to see. Then we're going to head out of this slow turn something or other that I've forgotten the number, of course, and down towards what is probably going to be the main overtaking spot on this circuit, turn 9. So this is the hairpin we're coming into right now, but it looks like it's all as status quo. We haven't seen any major position changes. However, Pauly has got a 1.1 second lead over Ryan Martin, so I wonder what happened there for that gap to get so big.
Well, yeah, I was seeing that gap was getting was really growing. Look at the tail on Ryan Martin's car. That is very, very lively. So is there a bit of a setup mistake that Ryan Martin's made, or is he just needing time to bed the car in? He said before that, he tries to take the early laps as, more conservative than he has done in the past, but you do not want to be giving Chris Pauly a 1.5 second advantage. So, especially when he's got Adam Barron literally breathing down his tailpipe. So Ryan Martin has potentially got it all to do. He wants to claw back. I will never get tired of that noise. That symphony from the exhaust of the Mercedes. There's the Merc and the Aston, I've got to say, are two of my favorite noises in this field.
I love that rear-facing camera as well, right on the back of the car. It's proper, 90s British touring car stuff. Love to see it. It won't be car setup for Martin simply because, of course, it's a fixed setup series. But what it could be, Martin did have a problem with his force feedback at Spa. As Jakubowski, unfortunately, I think I cursed him in qualifying. He has gone off again. Don't know if it's contact or he's made a mistake on his own. But Jakubowski now down to 17th. But yeah, I was thinking with, as we see a replay of Jakubowski, we'll cover this first. So, flat out through the first corner, into the kink at turn 2. This is the trail braking spot. We said you could understeer or oversteer, and Jakubowski's literally done both. He's understeered, gone a bit wide, then the rear's overtaken him, so he's found himself an oversteer and spinning off the outside of the circuit. So a real shame there for Jakubowski, but it's exactly what we were speaking about, that challenge of trail braking into a tight corner and the imbalance of these GT4 cars. But yeah, just very quickly to come back to Martin, he said that he actually had no force feedback during the Spa race, which explained why he was, he had a bit of a nightmare, let's be honest, when it started raining. But it could be something like that, or maybe he's just lost a bit of ground on the opening lap for whatever reason. I mean, he seems to have gathered it all up now. He's only a second off of Pauly still, so that gap's not got any bigger, and I think it's going to be okay for him.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I had forgotten about actually this force feedback trouble he had at Spa. So well remembered there, John. It could well be having some kind of technical issue, but does seem to be clawing that gap back to Pauly to under a second, or threatening to be under a second by the time they get to the flag. Darren Barris having a bit of a moment there coming out of turn 13, but over the line come our lead pack. So Pauly from Martin. Look how defensive Adam Barron is going. So Ryan Martin gets the near fastest lap of the race so far, 46.182. Oh, goodness me. So Barron going for the racing line, and Pete Plasto just having a look on the inside line. There's a very wayward Dan Cross comes through the braking zone of turn 2. Does manage to keep his Merc on the straight and narrow, but I was wondering whether we were going to see, the Mercedes trying to integrate itself with the Aston. Again, there's that back-facing camera from Adam Martin, that ever-persistent Aston nearly pushing the Porsche through the corners.
Yeah, he certainly did get a bit crossed up there, didn't he? But managed to gather it all up, and but of course it was on board now with Adam Barron looking back at Pete Plasto in the green Aston Martin, and then cross a further 4/10 back from that. So this is kind of the battle I would say I expected in this race in terms of the raw pace. You've got Paulie and Martin breaking away out in front, then you've got a 1.7 second gap back to Adam Barron, Plasto, Cross, Boland, all in a big train. Shout out to Dan Cross for doing a great job so far. I would say of this 4, he's probably been the biggest improver throughout the season, and it's good to see him up in the mix with Barron, Boland and Plasto, who are the 3 inseparables from last season. I think Plasto's firmly put himself amongst those guys as well. Meanwhile, Warmington's just lost the spot to the recovering Jakajewski down in P16. Of course, bear in mind, reverse grid coming up later on, so if those drivers can get inside the top 12, they have a chance of getting themselves to the front of the grid for race 2 a bit later on.
Absolutely so, as we see Adam Barron still with that ever-persistent Aston. That was a bit deep there from Adam Barron. Is that going to really upset his momentum? Goes immediately for that defensive line over as far as he can to the inside line, but looking at the Aston, it's not gaining at a massive amount. Adam Barron's going to make Pete Plasto go the long way. That is not going to work, as he's already proven coming through turn 2. Is he going to wrong foot the Porsche? Not quite. Oh, was a nearly impact between the two. That has forced a mistake for Plasto. Is Dan Cross going to be able to capitalise on it? Racing room given from Pete Plasto. Dan Cross could not capitalise on it. So wonderful battle for third. There's now 4 cars deep with Chris Boland at the tail.
Happened to cross on the exit there to not be able to take advantage of Pete Plasto. I don't know if he lifted just to avoid contact, or maybe he didn't have the right gear or something. I'm not quite sure. He seemed to lose momentum quite quickly, but it was very close, wasn't it, between Plasto and Barron? I think Plasto trying to go late on the brakes, Barron maybe a little earlier than Pete expected, and Pete just had to dive to the outside, ran wide. Don't know if he missed his apex, or if it was actually just Barron being in the way and Plasto essentially having to avoid him deliberately. I don't know if there was contact as well. It looked like there may have been just a little bit of contact too, so things are getting spicy. Boland's now in the mix as well, though, just behind Cross, as we cut back to John Finch, who's chasing down Bradley Kropp for P8. In fact, Kropp, I believe, may have just got past Finch, or that's just the change of position from the starting order, perhaps. But it's 6/10 between Kropp and Finch for 8th, but it's going to be Kropp running wide now. Finch is going to have the power on the exit as we head now down towards, again, one of the corners. Don't quite know them well enough yet to know exactly where they are on circuit. I think that was turn 12, and now down to 13 towards the end of the lap. We're getting there, Chris. We're getting there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on this learning journey with you there, John, because I was thinking, is that right? Is that turn 12? And then production did correct us on this. But look at this again, this wonderful trio. Well, it really is a quartet at the moment. Chris Boland can't really get involved. Now, Adam Barron staying to the racing line this time. Has he left the door open for Pete Plasto to barrel on the inside, coming along the inside of turn 1? No, he does not go for it this time. He is trying to force that mistake to give him the momentum advantage. Has a bit of a sniff on the inside coming up towards 3. Does not get the momentum he needs, but look up top. Ryan Martin getting very close to the back of Chris Paulie. He's just about in slipstream range of what is essentially turning into his arch nemesis for this season now, of Chris Paulie. So the number 88, our pole sitter Mercedes, he's going to have a fair amount of defending to do as James King manages to overcome Tim Hastings for 11th position, knocking on the door of the top 10, although got another 5 seconds before he closes in on Jack Drum. But look how close now Dan Cross is to the back of Pete Plasto, as well as, look at the bottom of the shot, Ryan Martin, Chris Paulie very close together. Now that's Boland making himself known at the back of this particular conga line, as Hastings and Eastwood are having a bit of a battle there for 12th position. So, as always, battles through the field.
It's all happening everywhere, all at once, all the time. And yeah, I think Martin's closing in by around about 1/10 of a second a lap on Paulie. Obviously, that fluctuates within the lap as well, so you will see the gap come down by more and less as Eastwood runs wide and loses the place to Barris. Now, he got close to Hastings before, but he's actually dropped a position now down to 14th and will fall into the clutches of Weston and Ajewski, the recovering Ajewski, of course, in 16th. So Eastwood's going to have to pick up the pace again if he wants to get back into those reverse grid spots. That's what the word we're looking for. But yeah, Martin and Paulie. I mean, Martin will be ruining that opening lap, won't he? Because if Martin hadn't lost a second or 1.1 seconds on that opening lap, he would be right there with Chris. And I think the pace is very similar between the two of them as we're being shown. So he will be ruining that opening mistake. That lap from Martin, just a tenth of a second slower than Paulie. Meanwhile, the action, as we said, is happening throughout the field, but what we're looking at right now is this battle between Ajewski and Weston for 15th, just on the back of Eastwood in 14th. They're going to head down the pit straight towards turn 1, 2, and 3, which I think is a really interesting complex of corners in a racing situation, because you can definitely defend the inside through turn 3. In fact, Ajewski's going to have a wee look into turn 1, but I think he's just making sure that Weston knows he's there. It's a bit of a lift through turn 1, then you've got this turn 2 section, and then into turn 3. Now, Weston's run deep, so he couldn't get the trail braking sorted, couldn't get gathered up. Ajewski's managed to get it sorted, done the switch back, and through, down the inside goes Jack Ajewski up into 15th place. What I was going to say is you can defend the inside of 3 quite well, but it does, of course, lose you a lot of lap time. So really, you know, it's one of those you can choose to guarantee your position safe, but you're going to lose time to the guys in front. So that's going to be a decision you have to weigh up throughout this race.
Yeah, absolutely so. Very well timed there from Jack Ajewski to manage to wrong foot the Porsche and gain that spot. Bradley Kropp, his rear mirrors full of green as he stares at the very persistent John Finch, trying to defend for 8th position. As now Chris Paulie has opened up that gap up top, as we were talking about, back up to about 1.5 seconds or so. See what Chris Paulie is able to do, or if Ryan Martin has an answer. Could be Chris Paulie kind of backed off a little bit. It could be a mistake. We don't know. The two Mercs up front kind of running off into the distance, exactly as you said, John, as was somewhat expected for those two, as Tim Hastings and Darren Berris continuing their argument in 12th position. The flame emblazoned BMW fending off advances from Darren Berris' Aston. As we cut back to this battle for 3rd position, Adam Berris again nails himself to that defensive line, tries to force Pete Plasto to the long way round, whilst the Aston is still trying to wrong foot the Porsche. It remains status quo at the moment, but you just know it's one of these battles. It's so tense between these groups that one tiny mistake will be heavily exploited by the chaser.
Certainly will, and with 4 minutes to go, we just know that the pressure is going to be on, and we're going to see attempts at moves here as Plasto runs a little bit wide on the close to the back of Barham. That brings Dan Cross back into the mix. Getting very exciting. Berris goes past Hastings. Meanwhile, Berris up to P12. In fact, they're side by side as we run through turn 4, and Berris hangs on to that one. So Hastings down to 13th, Berris up into 12th and into reverse grid contention. But yeah, that battle between Barron, Plasto, Cross and Boland is definitely going to continue to heat up. I cannot see it ending without much action between here and the finish. I mean, Cross at the moment is actually looking down the inside of Plasto into the heavy braking zone at turn 9. Actually got the corner number right, can't believe that. But then as we head through here, I mean, this is the part where it really stretches out, and you've got to try and just focus on your apex. Make sure you get that curb. Don't run too wide, as we now see Finch down the inside of Bradley Kropp. These two have been having a fantastic battle throughout this race, and it's Finch now back up to 8th, Kropp back up to 8th, Finch back up to 8th, and it's Kropp who exits the corner ahead in P8. 1/10 of a second between the two of them, goes up to quickly to 2/10. There's basically nothing at all in it. Finch close again to the back of Kropp. He's going to maybe have a little bit of a look down the inside of 13, but no, he backs out of it at the last minute, and that's going to hurt his exit as well. So Kropp gets that move done for now, but with a couple of minutes still to go, I think we could see these two swapping places many more times. Clearly, overtaking can happen here at Navarra, and it's great to see.
Yeah, 100%. What a superb battle they're putting on for us, and that is may well be for lower positions, but it's still being fought with as much fervour and determination as this battle for the last podium spot, as yet again Adam Barron. Oh, has Adam Barron been wrong-footed? Did he got a little bit too deep? Oh, Pete Plasto could not capitalise on it. It did look like Adam Barron was a tiny bit deep coming through that first couple of turns, but does manage to close the door just in time. Jack Ajewski on the back of Scott Eastwood, the number 42 McLaren, fending off the advances of the Mercedes for 14th position. Is that Tim Hastings has gone a little bit too deep in the BMW. He had, but he manages to hold on to that spot, does not lose enough momentum to lose 13th. Oh, Dan Cross looked a little bit lively coming through the right-hander. Again, I'm slightly lost on where we are. I think that's turn 8. Yes, it's turn 8 that we've just gone through now. But now Pete Plasto having to be defensive against Dan Cross as they come up to the braking zone for 9. This is where we anticipate a number of overtaking attempts to take place, which we haven't so much seen, but it's all about pressure application. It's all about just making sure you can deal with the fact that you've got these headlights bearing into your soul, which I know I am not very good at. If I've got someone buzzing around in my mirrors, I end up watching them and not watching what I'm doing, and that then forces me to wander off the road.
Yeah, absolutely. It's part of racecraft is learning to deal with the pressure in your mirrors, and that is certainly something that I am also bad at. Is what's happened here? Hang on a minute, there's a change of leads. Oh, okay, it was just timing screen glitch. Everyone breathe, everyone breathe. It looked for a second there like Martin got ahead of Chris Pauli, but it quickly sorted itself out, and it's back to 1.2 seconds. So the race for the lead, I thought was very much heating up there, has actually cooled down. 1.2 between them. Martin and Pauli on that lap, still not much to split them, but it was a mistake from Martin a couple of laps ago that has increased that gap. Plasto, Barron, Cross, Boland, still fighting, but we are now, I believe, on the final lap of the race. So I said things would heat up in this battle. We've not really seen it quite yet between the four of them, so I might yet be wrong, and I have been wrong many times in the past, but I still think there's a chance, and it looks like Cross is potentially the one who's had the most impetus in this race.
Yeah, very true. Whilst we haven't seen a huge amount of position changes, Darren Barris being the one that's gained the most, having had a bit of a poor qualifying, starting right the way down in 16th position, up 4 into 12th, but riding on board with Dan Cross as we head towards turn 8 for the final time in this race. Chris Pauli has had no challenge for a while. Fastest lap of the race going to Ryan Martin. Again, what a great exit from turn 8 for Pete Plasto to keep the red Merc at bay. Puts himself straight back onto the tailpipes on the Porsche of Adam Barron. Is there going to be another opportunity? Can the Porsche just park itself where it needs to be, only for a few more turns? That's really what's keeping people in their position, is just not making those mistakes. As Finch and Kropp have now swapped round. It's been coming for a while, exactly as you said, John. It does look like that the green Aston rather of John Finch has managed to win out on 8th position.
Yep, not long to go now for these drivers, so this is really where it has to happen. It's not going to happen for the lead, though. It's going to be Pauli ahead of Martin, and that's going to stay exactly the same as it has been throughout this race. Pauli taking his 3rd victory in a row, flashing the lights as he's going to cross the line ahead of Scotsman Ryan Martin, and really asserting himself now. Pauli is potentially the championship favourite as Ajewski's around again after a comeback drive throughout the race. He's going to end up on the grass. Meanwhile, this battle stays the same. So Barron, Plasto, Cross, and Boland, 3, 4, 5, and 6, I should say. And it's Forrest in a lonely 7th, well ahead of John Finch, who does beat out Bradley Kropp to 8th in the end, with Trunwitt and King, Trunwitt and King 10th and 11th. And then the rest of the field here, Barris getting the last potential reverse grid spot, finishing up in 12th. And we just had fantastic battles throughout the field here at Navarra. Even though there wasn't too many position changes at the end of the race, there were certainly plenty throughout it.
Yeah, absolutely so. And there's our newcomer. We haven't really seen Glyn Burry an awful lot, but he is still going. We welcome any new driver to the field.
Just to jump in there, Chris, I think it's actually Glyn Bury, according to someone in the chat. So thank you for that, which is not a pronunciation I've heard, unless I'm misreading that.
I'm always keen to get people's names right. I was as in the word fury. So Bury. Okay, I've not seen Bury spelt quite like that, but no, thank you for that. Not an English surname. That'll be where I was getting it wrong. So, a good comment as well from Dan Cross. Challenging track, to be fair, mentally draining if going for maximum pace. Tom Stevens is away. That's why we haven't got our lead Porsche with us, unfortunately. Well, what a great race we have been treated to. May well have been a little bit quiet up the top. Exactly as you say, John, there was plenty of action further down the field. So Chris Pauli taking another win. You called it absolutely spot on. And Ryan Martin chasing him home. Adam Barron rounds out the podium in 3rd. Pete Plasto 4th. Dan Cross in 5th. Chris Boland in 6th. Matt Forrest 7th. John Finch comes home in 8th ahead of Bradley Kropp 9th. Jack Trunwitt rounds out the top 10. James King, the lead McLaren, in 11th. Darren Barris 12th. Timothy Hastings in 13th. Scott Eastwood 14th. Ben Weston 15th. Jack Ajewski finishing in the end in 16th. What a shame for him. He's really struggling to keep the 99 Merc from swapping ends on him. Adrian Warmington 17th. Glyn Bury, beg your pardon, in 18th, with Sean Watson rounding out the field in 19th place. All right, do we have our podium 3 wanting to come and have a chat to us? We have 2 of them. We're waiting for our 2nd place driver to jump into the interview waiting box. So we'll speak to our third. Oh, yes. Thank you, production. We need to do the wheel first. So let us have the wheel up. So for those unfamiliar with the process, we will randomly choose a number between 6 and 12. And it's that many grid positions from the finishing order that will be reversed for race number 2. Right, production, let's have the wheel. He's accidentally spun it. Oh, even the greats make mistakes. Let's be fair. Tom Bryan, in charge of our cameras, has done a sterling job. So it would have been 6. Throw it. Let's see what the wheel is going to give us then. So anywhere from 6 to 12 is going to be reversed for race number 2. Ooh, that's looking like it's going to be 12. It's going to be close. It's that's still going. It's 12. There it is. So it is 12 that is going to swap round. So that puts Darren Berris, the man that was late to qualifying, into pole position. Now that is going to be interesting. So we couldn't really see what his ultimate pace was like. He was in constant traffic. So this is going to be an interesting one. If overtaking is a bit more tricky than we're giving it credit for, then this is going to be a defensive masterclass for those up front. But it's going to be Darren Berris from James King, Jack Trumrit from Brad Kropp, John Finch from Matt Forrest, Chris Boland from Dan Cross, Pete Plasto from Adam Barron, and Ryan Martin from Chris Pawley. It's going to be interesting to hear our drivers' reactions to how far down the field they're going to be starting.
I don't think it matters what pace Darren Berris has, because we know that he is the king of defensive driving from the front of the grid at reverse grid races. And we saw it in Blind Rock. He took a win earlier this season. We saw him win as well last season at Silverstone too. And Darren's actually just put in the championship Discord chat, stand by for a rolling roadblock. Be a rolling roadblock, Darren. You're absolutely entitled to do that, as long as you're not forcing someone off the track and putting them off, which we haven't seen from Darren so far. He is entitled to be that rolling roadblock, and I'm very excited. I always love a 12, I have to say. Love a reverse grid 12, because it means that the fastest drivers, Chris, are further down the field. Thank you, Tom, for the magic on the wheel and making sure that you accidentally spun that behind the scenes so that we inevitably ended up at 12. So brilliant stuff.
Right, well, let's have a chat then with our third place finisher. It is the Porsche of Adam Barron. Adam, are you with us?
Evening, gents.
Good evening, sir. Oh, wow, was your mirrors full of Aston Martin?
That was hard work. That was very hard work.
So talk us through what this track is like from a driver's perspective. We're a bit unfamiliar with Navarra, so how does it feel in the Porsche?
Well, I've just been speaking to Chris, and both of us agreed we don't like it. It's so stop, start. It's hard to keep your lines. It's just not very enjoyable. I'm amazed I've managed to finish where I was. I've hardly had any practice on this track, and I've had the day from hell today where I only just made qualifying. So I was expecting to be sort of near the rear end of the top 10 and hope for a reverse grid. But to finish third in that race, I'm ecstatic. But yeah, it was hard work, very hard work.
Goodness, well, speaking of the reverse grid, it has been drawn at 12, although Pete Plasto is demanding a redraw. So it is. So you will be starting from 9th. From 10th, I beg your pardon. What are your thoughts there?
Well, I think Pete was actually quicker than me. I just managed to hold him off in that race, so I think he'll be quicker than me. So if he starts off and we get through the field, well, depending if we even do get through the field, but if he gets through ahead of me, then I think he's got the legs to go past me. So honestly, at this point, I don't care. I'm just glad I'm here, and if I can get a decent finish, then I'll be happy.
Take the third place points and run.
That's basically it.
Well, fair enough, and that sets us up for a lovely race number 2. Any questions, John?
How's the car? And the real car, because it sounds like you had a bit of drama on the way home.
So, interesting story. I was at Alton Park today for a track day with my mates, and we were all guessing which car would break down, and my car actually broke down on the way there. So,
no!
So it didn't ruin my day. I had a great day, and then literally as soon as the track day finished, I was like, oh, now I've got to try and get home. So it was wacky races, car getting recovered. I'm hoping it might even turn up in the second race. So if I disappear in the second race, it's because I've got to go run out and get my car back off the trailer. But
does that mean you won the bet because it didn't technically break down until after the event?
Yeah, we broke my mate's Audi TT instead during the circuit, so that's fine. It wasn't mine.
Ouch. Oh my goodness me. Well, yeah, okay. You win the Eventful Day award, which Yeah, I'm not sure it was one you were aiming for, but we look forward to seeing your performance. Hopefully, we'll see you to the checkered flag. We'll look forward to your performance in race number 2. Thank you very much, Adam Barron.
Cheers, gents. I'm looking forward to a lie down. Thanks.
Fair enough. You heard it here first. Right, let's grab our Bonnie Scotsman. Let's have second place finisher, Ryan Martin. Ryan, are you with us?
Good evening. Yes, I am. I am here.
Oh my goodness me. Well, you challenged early on for Chris. It kind of the gap ebbed and flowed somewhat between the pair of you. We didn't see an awful lot of you, in fairness, as there was a fair amount of battling going on behind you. Talk us through the race from your perspective.
Well, it was one of the most unpleasant drives I've ever had on iRace. Now, I have no idea what happened. I don't know what went wrong. I've just been speaking to Chris Polly about the entire lack of grip I had on the first 2 laps. Adam Barron was right up behind me. I couldn't get away from him. Chris Polly was pulling away. My car just felt like it was on ice, and I don't know what I was doing wrong. I don't know what I did in the warm-up lap that caused that to happen, but even coming out the last turn onto the straight to start the race, I just couldn't put the power down. Went into the first corner, almost lost it there. Went into the second corner, almost lost it there. So it was, I accepted that something was wrong. I'd done something wrong in the warm-up lap. And that just then affected the entirety of the race. I was able to catch him a couple of laps, and then he would pull away a wee bit and then catch back up. But all in all, I mean, Chris Polly's got the pace on me this round. So maybe it would have been a different story if my tyres had actually done their job. But after almost dying in the first turn, I thought, right, this is not a good idea.
Goodness me! But again, the raw pace that you're showing is still something absolutely phenomenal. Talk us through the kind of practice and quality then, because obviously the warm-up lap and the race was a little bit more uncomfortable. What is this track like to drive?
Well, I think if it had any sort of grip, with the temperatures, it hit 46 degrees in that race. And I think you put cars on any track at 46 degrees and the drivers are not going to enjoy it very much, especially in GT4s. But in terms of practice, I've not been on iRacing since Knockhill last week. I've been too busy, so I jumped on 2 hours before the race, before qualifying, and my first flying lap, where I felt like I couldn't go any faster, was 2.5 seconds slower than Chris Polly. So somehow, I've been able to find 2.5 seconds and just be able to hang on to him. But yeah, I did not enjoy that. The guys in the chat are saying that there's a spinning picture of a sun, a burning red sun. So I imagine the second session is going to be as hot as the first.
Well, we will see. We will see when we get down to the grid. It might be a bit cooler than 23 degrees track temperature for race number 2. The big old 12 has been rolled for reverse grid, so you will be starting on row 6. What are your thoughts?
So I've just been talking to Chris Polly about Knockhill last week. It felt like he was able just to drive past people on the straights. However, we're in the same car, but mine seems to have about half the amount of horsepower as his. So I think I'm going to have to make some moves into a couple of the turns where it's actually possible. But minus that, just hope for a few mistakes. I tried to be clean last week, and then I touched the end of a curb with my rear tyre last week, and that's all she wrote. So last week's race 2 crash was completely my fault. I just went a bit wide. So yeah, we'll see what happens in this one. But I don't envisage a podium, in all honesty, but we'll see what happens. We'll try and have some fun for 15 minutes.
Any questions, John?
I mean, this championship battle's hotting up now as well, Ryan. We obviously you've had a couple of nightmare races, but drop scores will help you out on that. You had the pace at the start of the season, but Paulie is certainly, matched you at Knockhill. He's matched you here, but you've not done much practice. So how are you feeling about the championship overall heading into the last few rounds?
Terrible, absolutely, absolutely terrible. To be fair, I've kept an eye on Garage 61, the telemetry reader that we use, and Chris Polly has been doing a fair few laps. So I think
sneaky and spying on his telemetry.
Yeah, indeed. So next week, unfortunately, I'm not going to be here because I'm karting at Landau for Lossiemouth. So that is going to be all week. So I'll be doing some real life racing next week instead of this. But it looks like Polly might be wrapping this up within the next couple of weeks.
We will see. We will see. Still a couple of races ahead of us. Well, we look forward to seeing your charge through the field then for race number 2, and have a great time if we don't get a chance to speak to you. Racing in Landau. Not jealous at all. Not one bit. You can't prove it. Another great podium. Well done, Ryan Martin.
Thanks, guys, and again, hopefully see you after the second race. But after the past few weeks, who knows the outcome? Who knows the outcome? But I hope it's a good watch, and I'll hopefully speak to you soon.
Good luck, Ryan.
Great stuff. Yep. Thank you very much, Ryan Martin. Right, whilst we have a few more minutes left, let's have a chat to 3 on the bounce now. Race winner, Chris Pawley. Chris, are you with us?
Good evening, gents.
What just... How?
As you said last week, practice makes Paulie. I think that's the new catchphrase.
Well, it certainly has. My goodness me. When we came into the practice session, you were 6/10 quicker than Ryan Martin. And then by the merest margin, you get the pole spot. And then you just ran off into the span.
Had it pretty closely qualifying. So I thought the race was going to be, completely stressed from the off. I mean, Ryan kept me honest the whole way. But just managed to have enough pace and enough of a gap to maintain it to about second the whole race then.
Goodness me. So you'll be starting from 12th this time around. What are your thoughts and feelings?
Can't wait. Yeah, that's obviously as far back as we can go. I think Ryan and I just need to work through the pack as safely as we can. I think we've got the pace together to get through, but it's not an easy track to overtake, and the Merc's not got the highest top end. So, hopefully we can just get through safely.
You clearly don't need the highest top end. So, but again, great stuff. Well, a well-earned victory for race number 1. Any questions, John?
I mean, how much is the championship playing in your mind now, Chris? Because we've seen the development from, oh yeah, I'm sticking in it, I'm keeping close to Ryan, I'll keep the pressure on, to suddenly, on the pace of Ryan, doing lots of practice. Ryan's had a few nightmares and he's not going to be here next week. So suddenly you're looking like potentially the favourite, but we've got to watch out for Pete Plasto, etc. Are you going to be thinking championship when you're going through the field here, or is it just going to be fully focused on, getting as many positions as possible?
It's hard not to ignore it now, because I think Knockhill was a bit of a turning point in terms of, I think it was probably the first round where I've actually had the pace on Ryan, and that's just given me the confidence now going into these races that actually I can stick it to Ryan and win on merit rather than inheriting like I did at the first race. So yeah, it is on my mind. I've got the benefit of one drop round I missed, but I've still got one drop score in there as well. So there is still an element of just playing it safe and relying on that, pace that is the underlying pace to just get us through. A podium would be a great result here in this race.
I do believe you gave a fairly reserved answer to that question last week, and look what happened.
That's now, though.
Knockhill happened. That was it.
Knockhill definitely happened.
Yeah.
Well, it may well be a bit of a different feel to the circuit, but the anticipation's still very, very high. Brilliant win. Well done again. And I'm sure we will speak to you again before the season concludes. Well done, and we'll let you get back to practice. Thank you very much. Chris Pawley.
Cheers, Ed.
Right then, so the track temperature a bit different to race number 1. As mentioned, we have got 12 positions being reversed for race number 2. The practice session has just concluded, so we will get the grid formed. I think we have lost someone, so we seem to have 18 cars now in session. So someone, Glyn Bury has not rejoined us. That's a bit of a shame, but this is how the grid lines up for race number 2. So your defensive god Darren Berris on the front row. That is going to be a difficult challenge for anybody to overcome. James King in the number 23 McLaren alongside him. Jack Tronwit and Bradley Kropp have row 2, with John Finch and Matthew Forrest on row 3. Chris Boland and Dan Cross row 4. Pete Plasto and Adam Barron have row 5. Ryan Martin and Chris Pawley on row 6. Everyone else will start where they finish. Tim Hastings and Scott Eastwood row 7. Ben Weston and Jack Ajewski on row 8, with Adrian Warmington and Sean Watson rounding out the field. Oh wow! If the bet for race number 1 was not entirely straightforward, God, where would you put money on this one? It's Darren Barris has got to be a favourite. He's actually his age on. We saw how well he defended at Lime Rock Park, but is lack of familiarity with this circuit going to play a factor? I'm sure it will do for most drivers, but the McLaren is not proven to be a particularly strong car. So does that put a bit more emphasis on the likes of Brad Kropp, John Finch, Jack Tranwit? I genuinely don't know.
Guaranteed win for Barris. No other way of putting it. No, I think it's going to be, in all seriousness, I think Barris has got a good chance here, regardless of pace, because he defends well. But also, what we didn't see there were any of the really top drivers, the fastest 5 in the championship, having a bad race and therefore being high up the grid. So Barris has got a bit of space between him and the real quick contenders. Obviously, you've got the likes of Matthew Forrest in there, who's very quick. But I'm going to be really bold with this one, Chris. And I'm actually going to say that that's a good start. Chris, is what I meant to say. Chris Pauley is going to win this race from P12 on the grid against the odds.
Wow.
There's something in the air. I think he's got the confidence and the pace around here. He's done the practice, so he knows how late he can brake. He's got the measure of the car. I think he's going to do it. I know that you can't really overtake that easily around here, but if it's not Barris, I feel like it's going to be Pauley.
Well, I will counter that with Darren Barris. Exactly as you say, from the defensive driving we've seen from him, and it's not like he's lacks pace in the Aston Martin. He's got a really decent amount of pace. So I'm going to go with number 40 Aston Martin of Darren Barris, starting from the pole position as they work their way through turn 9. On the way back down through the field, the track temperature's back up in the 40s by the look of it. So if like Ryan Martin was struggling with the track temperature last time, it is not going to be any more comfortable this time around. So we will have to see how our drivers contend with the Spanish sunshine. Work their way down through the field. Oh, I can't imagine what the drivers must be thinking now. They know how difficult this track is, and now with a 12-place reverse grid, this is going to be quite something.
It certainly is. I mean, we saw the likes of Adam Barron holding off Pete Plasto in the last race. The question is, how much of a pace advantage do you need to be able to hold off your competitors? Can you avoid making mistakes? Because if you can avoid making mistakes around here, I think you can hang on to positions fairly okay. But the driver's going to be under so much pressure, especially at the front of this grid. Mistakes are going to happen. It just depends on where, when, how bad they are, and who's there to pick up the pieces.
Very, very true. As we round that final turn, now Darren Barris is purposely not floored it straight from that last corner, and that's caught James Tranwit. James Tranwit, now I'm doing it. James King has caught him out, and Jack Tranwit is the beneficiary. Brad Kropp has also gotten past the McLaren up into 3rd position. Can James King shut the door? He's forced out to the outside line. Can he hold on to a podium spot? Whoa, several people going very, very wide on that first opening lap. Oh no, there's a spin. That's a pole sitter. Oh my goodness me. Well, there went that. I've commentated cursed Darren Barris already, down through the order with that spin at turn 3, and getting a bit of a punch in the face from a few people. Oh my goodness me. So Brad Kropp now leads the way. John Finch second. Chris Boland up into 3rd. Well, all bets are off now as Darren Barris has retired the car.
Yeah, I think Paulie got caught on the outside of that one as well. Really unfortunate stuff, and it was just a mistake from Barris, which we haven't seen all season, but he's done it in the 3rd corner, and everyone else was just really unlucky on the outside line, and there was a bit of a big shunt there. But I mean, I was about to say we're going to see Kropp and Finch battle reignited this time for the lead, but Boland has got himself right in the mix, and now he's made up huge progress straight away. So Boland looking very strong now in P2, behind Bradley Kropp, who we know has form this season and can certainly do a good job of holding on to that lead. So let's see how long he can do it. Pete Plasto looking racy in 4th position as well. So we've got a lot of Aston Martins in the top 4. In fact, 3 or 4 Astons in the top 5 at the moment. Matthew Forrest 5th as well. But it's Martin and Paulie 6th and 7th. It doesn't sound like huge progress for them. They've made up 4 or 5 spots, which is a lot. But the main thing for me is you can see the gap between them and leaders is just not that big. Also, Barron, of course, dropping down in that initial incident too, along with Dan Cross. And that means that the defensive masterclass from Barron won't be able to be repeated this time either.
Well, certainly not unless we have a big incident, as that's Ryan Martin that's flirting with the sand on the outside of the final turn. As Bradley Kropp shows a defensive line there, flashing. Yep, we see you, Bradley. You can't tell me there's a back marker in front of you that you're flashing. We know you're flashing at us. We can see you. Oh, that's Ryan Martin. Have a look on the inside line of Matt Forrest. Oh, my goodness. I don't know whether that was the camera angle or a missed braking zone, but it looked like Chris Pauley was barreling his way into turn 1. Does he get alongside the multicolored Aston? I think he does. So Chris Pauly has gained that position as well. That's Bradley Kropp having a look at the inside line coming up towards turn 5. Can't get the inside line though. So Bradley Kropp in the Aston manages to shut that door. Finch and Plasto are the next pair of Astons, with Ryan Martin and Chris Pauly in hot pursuit as Jack Ajewski and Adrian Warmington swap round for 14th position. Oh, is that a look on the inside line for Ryan Martin? Well, he's leaving nothing on the table. That's Pete Plasto demoted a position. Chris Pauly does not want to be stuck behind the British Racing green liveried Pete Plasto. Has a look. He does not want to let Ryan Martin away from his sights whatsoever. Pete Plasto saw that one coming, leaves enough racing room, and potentially at another position that Pete Plasto's lost to Matt Forrest. He's going to get the inside line for turn 11. Can he do anything about it? No, Matt Forrest has got the momentum. Pete Plasto's lost 3 positions in this lap alone.
Yeah, Plasto playing it a bit too safe, I would say, on the outside of Pauly. I understand why Pauly's late on the brakes down the inside, has the confidence, but Plasto just got it a little bit wrong under braking, potentially being a bit too safe, and all of a sudden he's dropped. I mean, he's actually now behind Dan Cross as well, so Plasto going backwards for one reason or another. And of course, this is our championship leader. I've been speaking about Pauly versus Martin, but Plasto's right there actually leading the championship right now. It's just that he's got more points potentially to drop. So it's definitely worth keeping an eye on. Meanwhile, Martin's got past Finch as well. Pauly is doing a superb job following Martin through the field. In fact, Martin's kind of making it easier than I would expect to try and almost help Pauly through the field. It's a bit like he's he's helping his rival pick up the positions. And look at this now. Looking down the inside is Pauly on Finch, but he can't get it done, or can he? He forces the inside. Meanwhile, Boland on Kropp for the lead as well. So you've got battles for first and second and fourth and fifth. Finch gets back ahead of Crawley. Boland still ahead of Kropp, but Kropp's going to have the inside line. Will he send it down the inside? No. Boland gets it done, and it's P1 for the reigning champion. Meanwhile, Pauly does get it done on Finch as well. So you've got Martin third, Pauly fourth, but it's Boland from Kropp at the front.
Wow, what a great set of moves there. That was bold from Chris Boland. That could have gone horribly wrong. Very, very easy. As again, Ryan Martin banzais the inside of Bradley Kropp. I don't think Bradley really defended that one. You know who you're up against. I think he's just purposely not pushed too much and flash of the lights there from Ryan Martin. But then again, Bradley Kropp had the overspeed and then defends the inside line for turn 9. Oh, me of little faith. He is not willing to just let the Scotsman go, but leaves the door open for the inside of turn 11 and through up into second place. Now goes Ryan Martin, and also with the wrong-footed Aston. Oh, and a bit of a punch in the face as well from Chris Pauly. That move isn't yet done though. Bradley Kropp still side by side with the black Mercedes, and back up into third goes Bradley Kropp. This is not what Chris Pauly was. Now he knows his back up into third position, has the inside line for 14. Just about done, is it? Oh no, Bradley Kropp still there. Racing room given from Chris Pauly. He tries to get the momentum on the outside line of turn 15. Can he get it done? He's still nosed up into third. He's losing time against Ryan Martin. Now does get the move finally finished. But look at the conga line behind what is now Chris Pauly. That is third, right the way down to Adam Barron in ninth.
So much to decipher from that. I mean, Pauly doing a great job to eventually feel his way past Bradley Kropp. Kropp was not giving things up lightly there. As you see contact behind between Forrest and Finch, and actually there's more contact, and 2 of them face the wrong way. Plasto's off as well, losing a bit of ground. Dan Cross it was who was spinning behind, so it's carnage at turn 3. And unfortunately, a few of our contenders dropped back lots of positions there, Forrest and Cross being the worst affected. Plasto down to 7th. Timothy Hastings up to P6, by the way. Fantastic effort for him in the BMW, having a solid second race. In fact, a more than solid second race here. Plasto back, as I say that, he loses the spot to Plasto, and now he loses the spot to Trunwit, so I shouldn't have cursed you there, Timothy. I'm very, very sorry. Still going well, though, in 8th place. But yeah, so much to unpack from that previous lap. Kropp doing a very, very late defensive move on Ryan Martin. If I got a fright from it, I can't imagine how much of a fright Ryan must have got, but Martin managed to get the move done anyway. Then, of course, once they were side by side, that's Pauly and as we're seeing a replay before we continue with that one. So this is into turn 3. In fact, this is lap 1. So this is Darren Barris into turn 3. Gets a little bit unsettled over the curb. Too late in the brakes. Loses the rear end. And unfortunately, it was Trunwit, King, Cross, Barron all got involved in that. And just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But it was Barris's mistake. Completely unforced error from him. Just to finish the point I was making before, it was Paulie and Crop, of course. Then, because Crop had lost the speed and the momentum, Paulie got alongside him, and they were side by side for 3 or 4 corners, Chris, which is great to see. The fact that you can race so well side by side with these switchback corners obviously just promotes great close racing. Crop gave him the hip and shoulder, but Paulie managed to get it done. This, meanwhile, is the replay of the previous lap, and there you see 2 separate incidents. Forrest spins Finch around, Plasto and Cross are also coming together, and it's chaos everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you say, so much to unpack from all of those incidents. Thank you very much to Tom Bryan for giving us the replays of that. But Boland is not willing to give Ryan Martin an absolute inch here. So, look at this as Matt Forrest and Ben Weston arguing for the last spot inside the top 10. At the moment, that belongs to the multicoloured Aston. But you've got Warmington, Finch, all having to go in there. And that's now Ryan Martin gets the inside line through turn 5. And Chris Boland had no answer to it on that occasion. Here comes Chris Paulie trying desperately to claw his way back into slipstream range. He lost a fair amount of time arguing with Bradley Kropp, who is left into the dust to the tune of 3.5 seconds. Wow, Chris Paulie is pressing on. Your bet for the double win is certainly not unexpected. It's certainly not off the cards by the way that Chris Paulie is really pushing on. But Ryan Martin, if he's struggling, he's not showing any signs of it. But Chris Paulie, definitely the man with the pace. There goes Finch, flashing his lights, almost advertising the fact that he's going to try and make a move. And Adrian Warmington can't pull it off, though. The Green Aston remains in 11th.
Obviously, Finch making it up for lost time after that unfortunate incident at turn 3, but Warmington runs wide there. Finch is not going to have an overlap, but he's also got to watch out for Ben Weston, who comes down the inside, but is left ample room. Dan Cross also on the comeback drive after a really strong race 1 for Dan. But yeah, I think Paulie's obviously thereabouts. His problem, of course, is the fact that it's Ryan Martin out in front, and I thought Paulie had a pace advantage over Martin, or at least a consistency advantage, because of Martin's lack of practice. However, Ryan out in the lead, 1.2 seconds clear of Paulie, who's still got to get past Chris Boland, who we ride on board with now, the reigning champion in the BMW. I just think that Martin's going to have this one covered unless he makes any major mistakes with 6 minutes to go. Paulie now looking racy on the back of Boland through the trail braking of turn 2 into turn 3, switch back from Paulie, good exit. That BMW sounding fantastic. And it's going to be a flat out run through turn 4 now. Can Paulie make a move through here? No, he's going to be too far back to this fast turn 5 left-hander, and it's going to be status quo. I think he's going to need to try and force a mistake here from Boland. Meanwhile, Barron gets past Brad Kropp, and they're running side by side for 4th, just behind.
That they are. And so, well, there it is. The Porsche on the outside line all the way around turn 5. Bradley Kropp defending the inside as they then switch position. The Porsche still the right there. Manages the wrong foot. The 27 Aston has claimed the 4th position for himself. Here comes Pete Plasto as well, getting involved in this fight. There is the battle for the top 3. And there is Jack Kajewski. He is making his own exit. Okay, I suspect that's somewhat... either he's had a stuck throttle, or he's decided that enough's enough, and he's decided to make a grand exit. Well, that's...
I think that's a choice stuck throttle, let's put it that way.
Yes, I would agree with that. As we now cut back to this battle for 4th position, Adam Barron has it. Bradley Kropp defends the inside line from Pete Plasto. The Aston Martin trying his best to recover some lost ground following the earlier spins. What can he do? Well, we know he's got the pace, but he's just been a bit unlucky in the last few reverse grid races. That's championship lead is certainly going to be challenged as the points are totted up after this week. Now, Ryan Martin has gone into the lead, but has not run off into the sunset, as the slipstream definitely being given to the BMW. Chris Paulie right behind.
Yeah, Paulie still within touching range of Ryan Martin, but he's got Chris Boland in between them, and Chris Boland clearly no mug. At this rate, I think Paulie's actually going to just be thinking, can I even get past Boland here for P2? Crucial for the championship, of course. Martin doing well to hang on to his championship hopes, but obviously hearing from him he's not going to be here next week is a real blow. Chris Boland not involved in the championship battle this season after missing a few rounds. This could be Paulie's chance, though. I don't think it's an overtaking spot. He's going to have a wee look just to try and force a mistake from Boland. And he holds a tight line. Can he get down the inside, though? Into the left-hander. I don't think he was close enough. In fact, he does go for a dive, as does Paulie. Paulie makes it stick through turn 6. We didn't really expect it there. I don't know if that flash of the lights is an apology to Boland, or let's have a look. So he has the inside line late on the brakes, and it's a completely valid overtaking spot. I wonder if that flashing of the lights is just telling Ryan Martin he's coming to get him, because that was a sensational move from Chris Paulie.
It certainly was. He is determined to keep one hand on his championship charge. But now Ryan Martin saying, because he's not going to be with us next week. So basically, summing up the championship in favour of Chris Pauly. That said, though, Chris Pauly is not leading the championship heading into this round. That green Aston at the on stage right, as we're looking at it, currently has that honour, but may well be challenged, I would say, when we get into next week's race, which will be our penultimate round of the season. What a season it has shaped up to be. Absolutely superb every single time we've come out. So this battle for fourth continues. Baron from Crop from Plasto. Pretty decent run from Bradley Crop. Currently sits 9th in the championship. And this will certainly do his championship a big old boost. He's, as I say that, just drops it very, very slightly onto the sand. Is that going to give a bit of a momentum advantage to Pete Plasto? You will see as a bit of lag there upsets the tower for Chris Pauly, but he is determined to close in on the 86 current leader of Ryan Martin.
Noticing a few battered cars out there. Saw Jack Trunwitt, obviously the unfortunate victim in that lap 1 incident with Barris at the front. He could have been on for a great result, but it's what could have been for Trunwitt. You can see them in the background there with the other damaged Aston and Matthew Forrest, and here's a third damaged Aston Martin, of course, with Pete Plasto that we're now looking back at, and you can see that dented front bumper there for the fantastic looking Aston Martin, the championship leader, of course, as you were just referring to, Chris. And Pete's been one of the most consistent drivers this season. He's just not quite had the ultimate pace of Martin and Pauly, but that doesn't mean he hasn't had great results. He's already, I believe, won a race this season. In fact, has he? You know what? He hasn't won a race this season as Plasto. He's had so many second places, but he's not actually won a race, which kind of sums it up, really. He's had the pace, he's had the consistency, but just not quite right at the top. So the drop scores are going to hurt him relative to the others. Meanwhile, Forrest looking down the inside of Trunwitt. He's going to try and get the good exit. Trunwitt a bit slow on the exit that time, so they're going to be side by side. And I think Forrest may have made it stick. He has indeed, as they now head into the tight left-hander as Finch goes down the inside as well of Hastings for P10, but can't quite get that one done. He'll also have the inside line now into 12. They're still going to run side by side, and this is where the circuit's fantastic. It really does facilitate side-by-side action, but eventually Hastings gets that move complete, or the defensive maneuver complete, I should probably say, and Finch will have to have another go into another corner, but he's going to be looking in his mirror as well because the fast Dan Cross is coming through. Meanwhile, Crop runs wide again out of the last corner. This time, Plasto is through and up into P5.
Pete Plasto is going to have to close in on his arch rival of Adam Barron. Final lap already. My God, that race has just absolutely vanished. So it is white flag this time around. So we will see then if Chris Pauly is able to close in on the back of Ryan Martin. Side by side, Darren Cross and John Finch coming into the first turn. Can the Green Aston do anything about it? He's boxed in behind Tim Hastings. The inside line belongs to the Mercedes. Is that going to be job done for Dan Cross? Can he finish the move? He now boxed in behind Tim Hastings. Oh, nearly impact between the two, but John Finch, by the merest margin, holds on to the inside line and holds on to 11th.
I think Cross thought he was clear when he wasn't with Finch on the inside, but they all live to fight another day, thankfully, through here. Meanwhile, we've got the bouncing McLaren once again. Eastwood holding on to P13 ahead of Adrian Warmington. This battle, though, is not cooling down as Finch dives to the inside now on Hastings, gets the move done. Superb move from Finch, but Cross is going to have the exit speed here, and Hastings is going to be hung out to dry, losing 2 spots. But don't worry, you could still get them back in the next corner as they now head down into the braking zone of turn 9. Finch defends the inside line, Cross in behind, and Hastings now around the outside of the BMW, but it's too wide, can't carry the speed. So it's Finch from Cross, from Hastings, 10th, 11th and 12th, as that one all settles out. Meanwhile, our race leader Ryan Martin is about to grab his first win in a little while, and he really needed this one, Chris.
Yeah, that he did. Your winner for race number 2 here in Navarra. I bet he is very happy about that, and so is Chris Pauly, and rightly so. So our podium 3 is Ryan Martin, Chris Pauly, and Chris Boland in the BMW. Comes. Oh no, it was Finch. Oh, and losing a bit of his car. Losing quite a bit of. Oh, that may not even be his bumper, but that is not a... Oh, no, it's most certainly not. So there's been impact between himself and Timothy Hastings, who just about manages to fend off Scott Eastwood, coming through the last turn for what is now going to be 11th place. Oh, last lap drama then for the BMW of Timothy Hastings, as Scott Eastwood comes home in 12th. I wonder if we can see a replay of what on earth happened. So here it is. So Finch ahead of Cross, ahead of Timothy Hastings. So Dow does... Yes, it looks like Cross and Finch come together. Hastings nowhere to go, gives the Aston a big old punch in the face. Nothing he can do, but it leaves a memento on the track for the Marshals, and John Finch cannot steer, so he's come in classified. Well, he didn't make it to the flag. Classified actually 16th, as Sean Watson was still running and on the lead lap to demote the Aston down to 16th. Well, drama as the race concludes. Well, we'll give our drivers a moment then to kind of gather themselves after that. But what a crazy, crazy finish. But yeah, the win undeniably belonging to Ryan Martin. What a superb charge through the field. Chris Pauly saying that the pair of them had the pace to do it. And Chris just didn't quite have that last bit of pace to close in on the Scotsman towards the end. You can't deny from Ryan Martin, though, that was superb.
It certainly was, and just about keeps him in the fight. Sorry, I had my mic on mute just a second ago. So I was making a comment that he didn't even lose a position in the end, did Hastings, on that last lap. But now you can see the results there. So it's Martin from Pauly, Boland third, Adam Barron getting fourth in the Porsche. He said he'd be happy with just that first race, third place. He'll be delighted with a fourth in the second race. Plasto in the mix, but not quite scoring the points he needs in fifth, with Brad Kropp finishing sixth. Matthew Forrest, after an eventful run, is seventh, ahead of Jack Trunwitt, the unfortunate Trunwitt, of course. James King and Dan Cross rounding out our top 10, with Hastings, Eastwood, Warmington, Weston and Watson rounding out the top 15. John Finch losing it on the last lap after contact, and then Jack Ajewski, who we saw in the barrier earlier, and Darren Berris, who was on pole but threw it away on the opening lap.
He'll be kicking himself for that. I was the one that was saying how good his defensive driving was. Exactly as you say, John, his defensive driving early in the season was absolutely superb, but sadly was not brought to bear this time around. But we have got two of our podium finishes in the box waiting to have a chat to us. Let's grab our third place finisher, the BMW of Chris Boland. Chris, are you with us again?
Good evening, Chris.
Good evening, Chris. Well, that was chaotic.
Yeah, all I saw was about 4 or 5 cars in a massive pile-up to the left of me, and I was still going, so yeah, head down.
So he was just aim of the game was survival, I guess, by that particular point.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of backed off a little bit going into turn one on the opening lap. I could see people were bunching up a little bit, so you get the old accordion effect. So I thought, well, I'll back it off a little bit and just see what happens. And then, sure enough, chaos ensued. And then I suddenly found myself behind, I think it was John and Bradley, I think, and we were away. So yeah.
So when Ryan Martin then came past you, was there any kind of answer, or was it just good night Vienna?
So quite surprisingly, the times weren't that different when I was watching them come down. I knew he was faster. The Merc is unreal around here, and the Beamer, to be honest, it's like driving a bag of jelly. So I knew he was going to catch me, but he didn't pull away quite as quick as I thought he might have done. But by the time he got past me, my tyres were done. They were well overheated, and it was just a case of hanging on for P2, and then obviously saw Chris Pauly emerge, and he pulled the same move on me going through into turn 5, and no real answer for it. The Merc just kept it so tight, and it was clean, fair move, but still happy with third though.
Excellent stuff. Any questions, John?
I mean, you described the BMW as a bag of jelly. I take it you're not quite bonding with it fully yet, because I know that was a bit of a choice to change car heading into the season.
At the start, I absolutely love driving this car, but I've only ever driven it against other BMW M4s. So when you're all on the same playing field, it's a great fun car to drive. But when it's not quite there in the BOP, it's got a bit of straight line speed advantage, but that's about it. There's not much else.
We head to Brands Hatch. We head to Kent's finest next time out. Is it? Oh, it was Brands next time out. I was being told it's Donington Park. Either way, both wonderful circuits. Whichever one we are heading to, what's your thought on the tracks remaining?
Yeah, so I'm more than happy with both tracks. I enjoy both tracks, especially Brands GP. Next week I'm 50-50 again for whether I'll make the race. So if not, I will see you in 2 weeks' time.
We look forward to your presence on hopefully both, but whichever week you're able to make. Great stuff, great podium, and well done once again, Chris Boland.
Thanks very much, gents.
Let's have a chat then with second place finisher, Chris Pauly. Chris, are you with us?
No, but Ryan Martin.
No, Ryan Martin. grabbed the wrong podium finisher. Well, we will grab hold of our race winner then, Ryan Martin. Ryan. Wow, that was a brilliant charge through the field.
It was good fun. There was a couple of contacts. There was some crazy defending. I passed 2 cars that looked like they were trying to produce a baby car right at the start of the race. So it was quite interesting. Things I've never seen before seemed to happen in the first couple of laps, which was pretty interesting. And then, obviously, by the end of the second race, that's when I find pace and I actually know how to drive the track. So just a little bit. What's the saying? $1 short and a day late, or something like that. I don't know. One of those silly sayings.
I mean, either way, it came good for you at the kind of crucial moment. So, with the early detonations that went on with some drivers, was there? Were you kind of thinking, "Oh God, I'm going to be caught up in this," or was it just a case of that's my line, I'm sticking to it?
Yeah, well, I now only have the one screen. I used to have triple screens, which obviously gives you a lot more visual sort of awareness. But on my single screen, the only thing I could see was the cars on top of each other. So all I could do was look somewhere else and try and go there, because like when you're driving a car or on a motorbike, if you look at something, that's where you're going. So the incidents are the worst place that you could rubberneck, because you'll probably become part of it. But yeah, we got through. So did Chris Pauly, and then yeah, I think he was giving it a good go, but I was a little bit sneaky and I gave Chris Boland a little bit of draft. I was actually pulling away, and then I thought, no, I'll slow down a little bit. I'll give Chris Boland the draft to try and keep him ahead of Chris Pauly. It worked for a few laps, but then Chris eventually jumped past him. So I then put the foot down again, and I think I got. No, I didn't. I didn't get the fastest lap. A 10th and a half I missed that one by. But now I know how to drive this track, so for future reference, I'll actually be able to jump on and race it.
Fair enough. Good, brilliant win. Well done to you. Any questions, John?
Well, first of all, good to hear you're prepped for the next round at Navarra, some point in 2026, maybe. I don't know. That'll be great. How do you find the circuit in general now that you've got up to speed with it? Did you enjoy it? And I also just want to ask you, as someone who does a lot of iRacing, your experience on the platform, how do these GT4 cars in general sort of compare to some of the other machines that you race on iRacing?
So in terms of the track, as I said after the first race, I think by virtue of the temperature that somebody has set these conditions to, and the fact I think it's in Spain, or Portugal, one or the other, it's always going to be hot, and I don't enjoy driving on hot tracks. On the Sebring 12 hour a couple of weeks ago, I drove when the track was almost touching 50 degrees. I didn't enjoy that either, but myself and my team got a good result there. But yeah, the temperatures, it almost feels like it should be a karting track, because it's so tight and twisty, and I don't think it's really made especially for GT3 cars, but GT4 cars as well. In terms of how different they feel to drive, obviously slower. I'm used to LMP2 and GT3, so a little bit slower. They've got less downforce, as you can see. Just visually, you can see that they've not got as much bodywork downforce. They've not got as big spoilers. There's a lot more possibility of losing the rear end if you push it a little bit too hard. But they do make for better racing, I'd say, because slower cars usually do lead to better racing. But yeah, I can't wait to get back in a GT3, feel like the car's actually a little bit planted, and get back to my normal habitat.
Well, you certainly returned to your normal habitat of winning.
Yeah, it's never a bad thing.
And a very, very well-deserved win it is. Right, well, it'll be a shame if we don't see you next time out, but enjoy your karting escapades in Landau, and we look forward to your return for the season finale. Thank you very much. Ryan Martin.
Thank you very much, and I'll give you an update in a couple of weeks' time how karting went as well.
Awesome
That's
stuff.
good.
Look forward to that. Have a good time, and we will catch up with you then. Right, let's actually grab hold of Chris Pauly properly this time. Let's let's get our second place finisher, Chris Pauly. Chris, are you with us?
Good evening, gents. How's it going?
Yeah, so I meant to grab you before Ryan, and I inadvertently grabbed Ryan and introduced him as you. So, well done, me.
Slightly thicker accent than me.
I was going to say, you can tell quite quickly. Which
yes. Yeah, the silence somewhat gave it away as well. So, I mean, you worked your way through the field, exactly as you said. You and Ryan, he just kind of lost that little bit of time behind Chris Boland. Was that what kind of cost you the chance to attack for the win? Or, yeah, talk us through it from your side.
I think so. I think because I lost that slipstream from Ryan, it was just a lap too long behind Chris. But like I said, I didn't want to take too many risks, and I know Chris is a fair racer, so once Ryan got into some clear air, I think I'd worked pretty hard to get through the field, so I just had nothing left really to catch up.
It was a pretty eventful field to work your way through from the various detonations. Was there any point where you thought, oh God, I'm going to be in this one?
Yeah, I can't remember if it was lap 1 or 2. There was a bit of a pile-up. I think the left lane stopped. luckily, I decided to follow Ryan, so we got around it up to like 7th straight away, which was handy.
Well, it happened on several laps where the slow lane became a stop. So yeah, we head out to, it's either Browns or Donington. I thought it was Browns.
It is Donington GP.
It is Donington Park. So we head to, we don't head to Kent just yet. We will finish the season there in 2 weeks' time. So Donington Park then, what's your thoughts towards I love Donington Park. I made no bones of it, but what's your thoughts?
It's one of my favourite circuits for real, and it's obviously love it in the sim as well. I think I tend to find everybody's quite good around there. It's not one of those tracks where you can gain that much of an advantage. I found it a past on iRacing especially. So I think I'm expecting everyone to be quite quick, and then not to be that kind of big delta that there was or has been in similar races. So yeah, it's going to be close. It's a 40-minute race though, which helps in terms of strategy comes into it a bit. It's not just about a sprint race.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. We are in for a absolute superb penultimate round of the season. John, any questions?
Nothing in particular, just well done for a fantastic set of 4 races now. That's 3 wins and a 2nd place, which is excellent form. And I wish you the best of luck heading into the last 2 rounds of the season. I think you're in prime position now, I would say.
It's close, isn't it? I think I'll need to have a look at the table later. But as we've seen in either of these rounds, it can go anywhere. You can have a shocker pretty quickly, and both Ryan and I still need another good race. I can only drop one. Obviously, Ryan's kind of used his 2 drop scores, so yeah, it's still all to play for really. And Pete's sitting quite happily in 3rd with I think he's still leading now, but he's not dropped anything, so he's in a strong place.
We are leading to such an amazing crescendo, and I personally can't wait for that. Brilliant podium, and well done again to you, Chris Pauly.
All the best. Cheers, gents.
And that is going to conclude our festivities for tonight. Thank you very much to those of you that have been with us, either live or post-event. I can't even get the right drivers, let alone the right words. Goodness me. Your presence. Yeah. Thank you very much, John Monroe, for joining me in the box. I'm glad one of us is making sense, because it clearly isn't me tonight.
I don't think it's me either, to be fair, Chris. So I think between the 2 of us, we got through it, though, and we eventually learned the Navarra circuit. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. I thought it was great. And obviously, next week, we can start thinking about championship permutations and all these fun things. We can have the calculators out, the notebooks out, all the things you love to do on a Wednesday evening. And I certainly cannot wait. Also, big thank you, of course, to Tom, keeping us right behind the scenes, because he's been needed a lot tonight. Aside from actually doing his job, also helping keep us on the right track. So big thanks to Tom as always.
Absolutely so. So we head to Donington Park for the penultimate round of the season. We really hope you join us then. Donington Park never fails to give us amazing racing action. We look forward to seeing you then. Until next time, thank you very much, and good night.